I'm, as I said, an insurance broker from Lockton. I'm going to make a very short statement about this. We're one of the 10 largest brokers in the world, and we're the largest privately held. I know there are people from Marshare who actually probably felt a bit insulted. But I think we're sort of large enough to know what we're talking about. And this is going to be the shortest presentation when it comes to number of slides. And I'm going to start with what are a broker supposed to do when we talk to clients about cyber insurance. And I represent a part of Lockton who operates in operational risk. So we normally talk about liabilities and the things that people do that can go wrong. So that could be internal crime, could be external crime, could be liabilities produced by the company itself or by the employees of this company. And cyber insurance is sort of borderline to that these days. It used to be very operational. It used to be when it was introduced in the beginning. It was anything that could go wrong with your IT system was supposed to be covered under this. And then it goes back to the fact that insurance providers are commercial industries and they are like to be profitable. So what you do if you realize that the risk you're taking on is a bit too big, well, you start to decrease it. So it's a bit like the market these days has a variety of insurance clauses that makes this insurance a bit different than what it used to be in the beginning. And it varies a bit between nations, and it varies a bit between markets. So I'm just going to talk about sort of when I am a company and I am looking at my IT system and there is an issue there. We all know that. Going back to what Defendable said, you might have a virus in your system that might be 3 years old and you don't know about it. So when you look at it, you say, all right, I could buy an insurance. I'm going to come back to that. Does that work? Or I can increase my security. So I'll spend the same amount as I do on my insurance buying added security. And a lot of companies in Norway have done that traditionally. And there are reasons for that. And one of the reasons is, of course, that there are limited numbers of claims in Norway. And in particular, on the liability side, there are a few very well-known incidents where you've had sort of cyber attacks on companies who have lost their ability to produce, but it's not common. And a lot of companies will be able to sort of work old-fashioned style, pen and paper, and it won't really hurt your business that much unless you're producing something and you use robots and stuff like that who are absolutely necessary that this works. But when we talk about sort of the what should we say, the choices I have to make, then it goes back to what do I want the cyber insurance to provide for me? And if you look at sort of fire insurance, if there's a fire, I call my insurer, they take over, they send a surveyor. The surveyor says that this is a fire coming from what then? I don't know, lightning. And it's no problem. You'll get a new house or whatever there's the claim has happened to. This one is a bit different. And we're going to talk about two issues which are very apparent. And it's behind sort of the, what shall we see, the front end of the insurance. Because when we talk about this, we say that it's going to cover you for your own losses. So we're going to do reconstruction, we're going to cover business interruption and all that stuff. That's on the face of it. And we're going to cover your liabilities, which is also sort of, what should we say, not that common in Norway. But before I go into sort of the issues with a couple of these, the first party cyber insurance is a named perils insurance, which means it has a few things it covers. It's not an all risk, so whatever cost you have, it's not going to cover all that. It covers specific items written down in the policy. And for the third-party cyber insurance, some of you might have other liability insurances. Those insurances will sometimes cover your liability if you have a cyber incident. A lot of you will have these LMA exclusions, which will take away any liability caused by a cyber incident. And then comes the question, if you don't have that, does it still cover financial loss or just liability? Because if it covers only financial loss, it will not cover the GDPR fines that Henning was talking about. So how you structure this and how these insurances interact with each other is, or shall we say, important for the protection that a company gets. So, and this is just repeating what Beasley was talking about, so that's not that important. But this is the first of two slides. And this is the first party cover. So, when Brad and Niall was talking about their reconstruction, the insurance from its origin was, what shall we say, designed based on companies having their server in the basement. So something happened, you pick up the phone, you call the forensic company, they come riding in, they find out what's happened, and you reconstruct. And if you have a business interruption loss, that will be covered as well. Well, the world isn't like that, is it? Because it's outsourced. We outsource to everyone. So I might have, what then, 5 service providers. They provide sort of the platform, they provide my software, and the only thing I have in my house is a PC. So what happens if I actually woke up one morning and it says crypto or septo or whatever the file system is called when you push that phishing button? Do I call my forensic firm? That's what the policies normally say. You call your forensic firm. Okay, so what if you have an outsourcing agreement and there are contracts behind that? So in our experience, when you talk to some of these service providers, they say, all right, I see what you're saying, but nobody touches my system. So then you can't get your forensic firm in there. And if you can't get your forensic firm in there, how do you prove your loss? So then you have to talk to your service provider and they say, all right, can you provide this? And then it gets interesting because some of the policies says you need a statement from an outside expert. So if you need an outside expert's opinion before you can get paid, so what's the value of the insurance then? And also, going back to what I said about the Norwegian tradition of just calling your insurer if you have a claim. Most of these insurances will state that you have to prove your own loss, which means you either call your own people or you call the forensic people at the insurer who are not allowed access. So who do you call them? Obviously, you have to make an arrangement with the service provider, and not all insurers are very interested in having the same service provider who might have the attack from somewhere else giving the proof of loss. So that's basically, I light the fire myself and then I claim. Some insurers will accept that, some will not. And going back to what you saw the report that Defendable put up there, I think, and I might be stupid, but in my view, it's not very clear how to prove a loss in this area. It's a bit easier when it's a fire. So there is, not talking negative about anyone, but I think that loss adjusters in insurance companies might not understand all of that. So you need a third party to say that this is a valid claim. And if that valid claim comes from someone who's not outside, well, this first wording won't pay anything. So when you look into this, how are you going to do this? So, and that's the job of the insurance broker, So when we talk to companies about this, we have to find out how many service providers do you have in your system. And interesting cases comes up when you have, what then, 4 service providers. 2 of them is being approved by the insurer. They can do this themselves because it's reputable companies or whatever. But the others are, what then, 2-man bands. And they say, no. we're not going to have anything coming from them. And then what do you do then? Change them, or debate with the insurer, or lose your insurance. So, and well, this is direct copy from someone. So, and from as you can see here, I think a lot of companies are not used to being the project manager for claims themselves. So even if the policy has a forensic firm that is preferred to come in, it might not be that they can come in. And if you do something with this one, let's say you have this wording, you have to agree with the company that this maybe the service provider, maybe a forensic team, someone has to come in and do your project management of the claim. And the other thing I'm going to talk about is what I started with. That's the liability side of it. Because there are, if you have service providers, most IT companies we come across have excellent lawyers. So what these excellent lawyers do is that they're limiting their liability. And it has to be that way as well, because if you're a service provider and you have like 1,000 clients and you have a claim and you are not able to pay business interruption for 1,000 clients, that's just a fact. So you need to limit your liability. But what if someone uses you as a mule to get through your system into your client's system? This is in fact the insured in this case, and it moves through there and into your client, and it kills your client's system. Who's liable then? And who's going to pay for it? And let's say you are liable. You're the insured and you're liable. What then? And then you say to the insurer, yeah, well, I'm liable, so you have to pay. And then the insurer says, well, could I have a look at that contract, please? Because I'm going to make a recourse against the service provider who has actually allowed this to happen. And you've limited your liability, and the insurer says, yeah, I'm not going to use those words, but they say that you're on your own. So and this is very much an interaction with some of the other insurances you might have as well. So you might have a general liability insurance, you might have a PI insurance, and you might even have a crime insurance, which could be triggered by this. But it has to be written down that there's a subrogation waiver if you do have that type of contract. And also make sure that your liability insurance has the word liability and not financial loss. Because if it has the financial loss term, it won't pay the GDPR fines. And basically that's it.